Good evening, and welcome to a new edition of Urban Sentinel Live. And I'm your host, Reggie Kearney. I want to welcome you to Urban Sentinel Live on Pod TV. TV. Yes, we're a strong station worldwide with 3 million viewers a year. So, I want to welcome you guys here tonight. We're going to have a good time together as we talk about a couple of issues. I'm just sitting here now sending a shout out to everyone to make sure they get on with us tonight. Make sure they check the show out, want them to do that, check out this good show, so I hope everyone is doing fine. I know you all are out doing your Christmas shopping, getting ready for the holidays. I think we all are okay. Okay, just hold it for me. I'm not quick as these young people are when it comes to using social media. Okay, got that done. Okay, so look, before we get started tonight, you know what? I did have a guest tonight, E2 Evans, and he couldn't be with us tonight. He's a icon in the fashion industry, and couldn't be with us tonight. He had death in his family, so my prayers go out to his family tonight as they prepare to bury one of their loved ones, to give them a homegoing service. So I want E2 to know we praying for him and thinking about him. So sorry he can be with us, but he will be with us in the near future. Before we get started, let's talk about a little football now. I know for my men and my women too. I think everybody was disappointed with the CFP's decision to drop Florida State out of the championship game, the semifinal that leads up to the championship game. Money. That's why I think it all boils down to was money. Because they actually have in their white paper, they do have a statement that says if the team loses one of their key players, that might diminish their ability to play the game at full speed, then they should be overlooked. Okay. I feel sorry for the guys at Florida State after they've played hard all year long. Going 13-0. I'm not a Florida State fan, but still, right is right, wrong is wrong. But it just shows what length the bowl representatives and media, the television stations that would be making a lot of money off of this, want to have the best and the brightest, I say, in the bowl game that leads up to the championship game. And I think it was a shame that, they listened to Saban down in Alabama, and they gave him exactly what he wanted, because Georgia was number one going into that game on Saturday with Alabama, and they lost, and they dropped all the way to number 6. Okay, I think that was too far of a fall. Here was a team that had a 26-game winning streak, and they got kicked out of the running for the bowl. So hey, just goes to show you what big money would do, how these schools operate. But big ups to my HBCU schools, Celebration Bowl. I'm kind of bothered and upset that North Carolina Central won't be there this year, but we got two good teams, Florida A&M and Howard University. Okay, so I'm still going to have a good time down in Atlanta on December the 16th with the Celebration Bowl. So if you're down in that area, or if you want to support the HBCU schools and their with that bowl, the Celebration Bowl, go down to Atlanta December 16th, which is, believe it or not, another week, two from a week or two, and I want to say it's next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. So I'm pretty sure everyone will be going down to the Celebration Bowl.
I'm sure you're exactly correct. It is the next weekend, like you were saying,
Yeah.
and it will be Howard against FAMU and all along those lines. Central did get to go to the FCS Bowl, did not last long there and everything because they had the game. Apparently, were winning it in the first half, but forgot that it is a 2-half game, and they lost to Richmond. And now I guess Richmond continued on their roll. I did not see what they did this past weekend, but there are teams that are trying to get that championship, so they did get a chance to at least have a little bit of a postseason, even though it wasn't a long postseason. It literally lasted one game, but they traveled up to Richmond. And like I said, they lost that game pretty handily, but they were winning in the first half, but let it go in the second half. It is a 2-half game.
Yeah, I checked the score out. I didn't realize they were playing. I was flipping through my ESPN app, and I said, wow, gosh, if I'd known that, I would have gone down to the game. Right. But, yeah, they were winning at halftime. They were doing good. It was a close game at halftime. They weren't winning, but it was a close game. And then when I looked at the final score, because it wasn't televised on ESPN up here,
right,
I said, what?
Yeah, it was not a close game at all. But like you said, sometimes, after you lose a game, it surprises you. My alma mater, and I'm actually wearing their shirt. You folks can't see it in this particular pose and everything, but it's Marquette. And we made it all the way up to number 3 after we beat the number 1 team, Kansas, and lost a very close game to Purdue, at that time, the number 2 team in the country that then went on to number 1 and everything. And then they lost, and now Arizona's number 1. But because we lost to Wisconsin, which is an in-state rival, we fell all the way down to 8. So, like you said, sometimes politics plays a role as well. So
it does. It does. The polls and stuff aren't fair to the teams. We can look at Colorado. And they didn't need to be in the polls anyway. But after they lost their first game, they slipped, and second game slipped a little more. By the third game, when they lost, they were just out of the polls at that time. So that's how
there's no telling. We've got a tough game on tomorrow because we've actually got to play where Shaka Smart came from. So we've got to play Texas, and hopefully we'll pull out of a victory. But if we don't, we'll probably drop below the top 10 and everything. So, like I said, those polls, 1 minute you can be at the top of your game, the next minute you can be down, and all along those lines. I had a question for you based on something I heard politically. I know we could continue on this sports conversation, but I had a question for you because I saw today, and I mentioned it on our show World Edition. I might have even mentioned it on World Politics, but we didn't get into a discussion around it. Apparently, in this age of division, we have a new record. Apparently, Kamala Harris set a record for the most tie-breaking votes of anybody that was a vice president in about 200 years. So the last person that had this record before Kamala broke it was a slave owner, and all along those lines. I didn't see who the slave owner was, but they did say that Kamala Harris has broken the record for the most tie breaks in a White House and all along those lines. Because we do know that the vice president is the one that conducts the tie breaks, and we do know that it is a very divisive Congress and a divisive country. So apparently she set the record. So what are our thoughts around this? The fact that Kamala is to become a tiebreaker in this space. So she set a record.
I can believe it, because when you look at I think the first year until they were able to take over the Senate, where it was 50-50, and then they had to go do the rerun down in Georgia. Do the campaign down in Georgia and runoff down in Georgia. It was 50-50, and but you don't, I think the reason it caught so many people off guard because you didn't see nothing getting done, okay? Right. You didn't see nothing getting done, but there are a lot of little bills that get passed between both the House and the Senate we never even hear about, a lot of procedural stuff that gets taken care of, so, you have, even if it's not a bill, if it's procedural stuff that, somebody got to break the tie to get the ball rolling.
Got to get that ball rolling, and apparently that's what she's been doing. One of her jobs. There are people that say that she has been given tasks that are next to impossible to complete because a lot of people have been critical of the fact that they gave her this migrant task or dealing with migration and a couple of other tasks that they have given her that they some of the critics of the administration have said that they don't feel are fair and that they don't necessarily give her a chance to highlight herself and all along those lines. But I just wanted your thoughts.
Right.
I know that they've given her different responsibilities, and some of these are like almost tilting at windmill kind of projects and everything. But I just wanted your thoughts as to whether they have given her any duties that she can actually show her mettle and all along those lines.
But I kind of know, and some people might get mad at me saying this, but I get mad at her for not doing things that she could have done. After Biden gave her the task of coming up with the immigration reform, she didn't put anything down on paper. Man, you got to start somewhere, even if it might not be the right thing at the beginning. You got to put something down on paper so you got something to work with. Okay. And I think that's where her downfall has been with the immigration reform, that she didn't put nothing down on paper. That she went down to the border and went to a couple of countries in Central America, asking the presidents of those Central American countries to work on not allow their people to come to America. And what the government did, they sent them some money down there to kind of help them out with the economy and some of the hardships that the people are facing down there, but it didn't work, because you got to realize, and I've talked to people from El Salvador and places like places like that in Central America, some of the Central American countries, gang violence is terrible down there.
No, it's terrible around the country. I actually had a guest on our World Politics show, Robert Riggs, who does true crime podcasts and does a number of other things. And he was talking about the impact of the cartels, not just here, but globally and a number of other places. So he was definitely saying that it is a harsh issue. But, we might be in the middle, and we've been talking about this on a couple of our shows here on the network, in the middle of a conflict right in our backyard, because we oftentimes talk about Israel and Hamas, and we talk about Ukraine and Russia, but apparently Venezuela, as of Sunday, voted that they might want to raid Guyana, because Guyana is a fellow oil rich nation and everything. So this could be a war that's literally in our backyard. So it'll be interesting to see what our politicians do when it's in our own backyard.
But the thing about that situation with Venezuela and Guyana, that has been an ongoing situation for hundreds of years, because at one time, the portion of land Venezuela is saying is that that Guyana says is theirs was Venezuela's. Okay, right. So that conflict has been there, but I think what was happening is, anytime you want to gain a little power, you look at the easy way to do it. Okay, you want to gain some territory. Okay, this is the easiest thing to do, and won't be a whole lot of people won't get upset if we take this little slither of land, because
didn't we see something similar in Africa? Because my dad, when he was teaching, used to teach in Eritrea, and it's my understanding that Eritrea and Ethiopia have some conflict over some land as well, and the same with Pakistan and India. So there are a number of countries that are having these territorial disputes as to who owned it, when they owned it. I think that there's even some disputes around Ireland and the UK and everything. So it does seem like there's a number of these territorial disputes that, as you just said, have been going on for decades and all along those lines. But definitely it'll be interesting to see what plays out in our own backyard. I do have to ask you this question and everything. I know you've got some other topics that you were going to bring up and everything, but are you literally, because tomorrow is the big date, I think they're doing it in Alabama, if I remember correctly, it is the fourth and final debate, and apparently there are only four Republican candidates: DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, or as my brother calls him, Beatbox Ramaswamy. That's his nickname for him and everything. And also Christie and Nikki Haley. And there are some people that saying that if she can get enough support, that Nikki Haley may have a pathway to victory if she can get past that mammoth of Trump that apparently has this big lead, and it looks like we're heading to a Trump-Biden rematch, and he hasn't been in any of these debates. But there are four candidates on the fourth debate. So I just wanted to know, Reggie, are you going to be watching the debates, or are you tired of these folks talking? I
haven't even watched the first one yet, so no plans to watch it tomorrow night, because they're really not talking about anything. And I'm sure tomorrow night there'll be more fighting among themselves, because they want Christie to step out of it. They want what's the guy, the Indian guy? They want him to step up. What is it? Ramaswamy, whatever his name is, and a lot of people are pushing for DeSantis to drop out because he's having so much conflict within his organization. Plus, his funds are getting low. But
so if it's just Nikki against Trump, is there a way that Nikki could win? So that's my question. Or is this just a exercise in futility?
Look, let me tell you something. White men do not want a woman in the White House, okay? They showed that with Hillary, okay? If it had been Bill Clinton running again, Clinton would have got elected, okay? For some strange reason, older white men they fear having a woman in the White House, okay? And I think even though a lot of people are pushing Nikki, I think that she'll face the same scrutiny that Hillary faced. The country is not ready for a white female. I think a lot of times or a female period, because I think they feel the same way about Kamala.
I think there's a lot of people that are pushing back against Kamala. I actually heard something interesting. I was quoted a figure, and I don't know the exact figure, but there are folks that are upset at certain politicians, and they want those politicians gone for whatever reason. They want those politicians gone. And I heard recently that some very big money, and I think I quoted 250,000. It might not have been that much. I'm actually going to look it up and everything. But Hill Harper actually wants to run for Senate. He has no interest whatsoever in running for a bigger office in the sense of like the House, or actually that's a lesser office. But I know that a few days ago he actually reported that he had been offered $20 million to run against Representative Rashida Tlaib, because there are people that feel that Tlaib is too far in the support of Palestine and all along those lines. But I just wondering, what is your thoughts about this? Because apparently, Hill Harper wants to be a senator. That's why he's running for Senate. But apparently there's some people that were major donors that offered him, and apparently a Democratic donor offered actor Hill Harper $20 million to run against Representative Rashida Tlaib, an offer that he turned down because, like I said, he's running for U.S. Senate, which is a bigger office. So I think he's got his goals or what he wants, and it's not necessarily to be in the House, but he was offered $20 million to run against Representative Rashida Tlaib.
Yeah. Now, let me say something. Now, we are in a country where we have the right to say what we want to say, okay? And as far as I'm concerned, the whole Israel-Gaza thing is a debacle right now, okay? Because where I draw the line is that I realize that Israel has to engage Hamas because of what happened, okay? They have to protect that country, okay? But in a war like that, in urban warfare, it's hard to not have casualties of the people of the community, okay? And somehow someone's got to figure out, if you're going after them, we got to stop killing so many people, I'm tired of looking at pictures of little kids and babies being brought into hospitals to be operated on and things of that nature, okay? Now, we have to, even though we have free speech, even as a politician at times, you cannot always have the bullet pulpit, okay? You can't, because you got to realize you're not only representing your ethnic background, you're representing the whole community, okay? And so you got to tell your remarks to get the message out, but at the same time, not upset the apple cart, okay? Now, I think what she was doing, being that she's of Palestinian descent, she was going off on what was going on over there, okay? But, politics is such that you have to support, there's a lot of support for Israel, okay? Whether they're right or wrong and how they're carrying out the war, there's a lot of support from the United States, okay? And worldwide, they're getting condemnation now. They're being condemned for what they're doing, okay? There's no support from them. The only country that's supporting them is the United States, So I think she's got herself caught up where people just don't want to be bothered with her no more, because a lot of people, the people that want to give Hill the money are probably people that are affiliated with large Jewish PACs.
That would be my guess and everything. Because one of the things that I've heard that's interesting, along with what you just said, is that I've heard some people, including folks on this network, that have mentioned the fact that apparently she still has family in Palestine. I don't know if they're in
Yeah.
Gaza or whatever,
Yeah.
but her grandmother apparently still lives
Mhm.
in that area. So I can understand where she would be concerned with a family member. And even to what you said, it is my understanding that the area that she represents there in Michigan is majority Muslim population. So of
Yeah, it
course
is.
there are probably a lot of folks that are in that area that are
Mhm.
supportive of what she's saying.
Yeah.
So in that case, she is representing her constituents. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't Jewish constituents and Christian
Mhm.
constituents that she also needs to be aware of and hear their concerns as well. But that's my understanding. And like I said, I've not been, don't think I've ever
Mhm.
visited Detroit, even though I've been to the Midwest in Chicago and definitely Milwaukee, where I went to school. But definitely, it's my understanding that that constituent where she is has a significant Muslim population.
Yeah. But like I said, you got to walk a tight line as a politician. I think what happened was when she came out with the comments along with some other people, that Jewish pact said they were going to put up $100 million and target certain members of Congress or the Senate that made disparaging remarks that shows they're not in support of the Israel government. Okay, and that's where the sticky part is. Okay, and you got to take your lumps, and you got to take your lumps as a politician. Because if you remember her and the other three ladies that hang out in the little gang, they have said some things. Okay.
No, they've definitely said some things, but I did have a question for you. I don't know the answer, but
Hmm.
some people have asked me the question, and you're there in DC.
Hmm.
I'm not doubting that the Jewish lobby is a very strong lobby and everything, but there's some significant Arab money that exists in the United States and globally as well. Is there as a strong and Arab lobby? And if there is, why are we not hearing from them as much as we're hearing from the Jewish lobby? Because every time I hear about the Jewish lobby, but I know that there is Arab money in the United States, just like I know it's around the globe. And of course, we know UAE, Saudi Arabia, and a number of other places have some folks that are making money that, well, I consider myself fairly poor anyway, but they make me look even poorer at everything because they got all kinds of money and all
Yeah.
kinds of situations. But I'm
Hmm.
not hearing conversations from their advocates as much as I'm hearing it from the streets. Now, on the streets, I'm hearing a lot of people advocating for Palestine, but where is the um, Arab money in this conversation? Or are they choosing to not put their money in the same way that the Jewish lobby is?
One thing you got to, if you look at history, the Arabs don't care about the Palestinians. Okay,
Mm,
never had. They don't like them.
right.
Okay, never have liked them, and not gonna like them now. Now, I think the reason you find so many countries in the Arab community that are upset about what's going on there with the number, it's all because of humanitarian reasons. Civilians are being killed. Okay, and a lot of them there was a pathway being developed that would bring Israel and all the Arab countries together. Okay.
Mm,
Now there were some Arab countries that weren't that interested in that, but they would have gone along. Okay. Now they're saying that path to reconciling and having peace in the Middle East has been destroyed because of what Israel is doing. Okay. Now, but they keep the Palestinians at an arm's length. Okay. All right. So that's probably one of the reasons you don't hear a lot about them getting into the fray with the United States. Okay. What you do find out who's getting in the fray are all these militant organizations. You hear about the Hutus in
right.
Yemen, and Hamas and ISIS and other organizations that are small time terrorizing the United States and the ships in the Red Sea right now.
Yeah.
So those are the things you hear about. But Egypt doesn't want the Palestinians in their country.
Mm,
The Palestinians are a group of people that have nowhere to go. Okay, they have nowhere to go. No country wants them. Okay, for whatever reason. I see them all as being part of the Arab community, but the Arab community doesn't see it that way.
yeah, that's interesting you say that because as you're saying that, I mean, if I understand biblical thought and philosophy and everything, isn't that partially what the way the Jewish community and Israel was described biblically? Was that it was the lost tribe in the wilderness and all along those lines? And if that's the case, it sounds to me that Palestine may be the modern day version of what the Bible talks about and everything. If I remember my biblical narrative correctly.
Right. And they're lost people, so nobody wants them, but at the same time, Hamas has a vendetta that to carry out, and they want to literally destroy Israel. Okay, they want to kill everyone that's living in Israel right now, which is going to be impossible. So you're going to always have this conflict, but at the same time, Israel cannot get rid of Hamas. I mean, it's going to be hard. How do you pinpoint and how do you pin down every member of Hamas? Okay.
You raised a couple of interesting questions that have come up on this network and on various shows, because there is a gentleman that has said that when I have brought up what I have said, because I've read a couple of stories that I've heard that the Hamas leaders have said that they saw this as a way to undermine the two-state solution, that they were saying that I was saying that was a correct assessment and that I was backing that assessment, when all I was saying was that is what I had heard from reports from the Hamas leaders and everything. And then the other thing that has come up on the network, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about both of these things that I'm going to bring up, is this notion of Hamas and Palestine are not the same thing, but there are people that want to confuse them as being one and the same. And if you are going after Hamas, don't you have to target Hamas and not assume that every Palestinian is a member of the Hamas party and or the Hamas organization? But there are some folks that will say that Hamas and Palestine are one and the same, or Hamas and the Palestinians are one and the same.
I know. I don't say that. It's just like the Klan, okay?
Right.
Now, every white person was a member of a Klan, okay? But they felt the wrath of what was going on with the Klan because they were white, okay? Right. And so during the time when the Klan was out there acting foolish, every black person identified any white person they saw during that time in the South as being a member of the Klan. They didn't know who was the members of the Klan were, but sometimes they did know. Right. You always knew who the Klan were in your community. But it's just like that, guilty by association, okay? Now, I've been thinking about this. I think what's going to happen with Palestine is that because of the killing of so many civilians, okay, that's taking place, the younger generation is going to splinter from the wisdom of the older generation, okay? And that might be how Hamas will refill their ranks, okay? When you see if you spend enough time in that area during this time, and you see your niece or nephew or cousins dying at young ages and stuff, and people, they keep pushing you away and telling you go south or go to this area, and you keep seeing bombs being dropped on you, and people getting killed around you, civilians that have nothing to do with Hamas. That works on your psyche, okay? So eventually you're going to be so bitter that you're going to go join, and they know this, okay?
Right.
They know this. I was listening to Joe Scarborough's show this morning, and they say it's two things Hamas, is lacking: the ability to kill Jews and the ability to get Palestinians killed, because it's a win-win for them.
It sounds like a win-win for them in their way. But the other thing that's been brought up on this network, and I'd love to hear your pushback or your thoughts around this, is this notion that just because you chant something that you believe in it and everything, because a lot of people are hearing the protesters use the phrase from the river to the sea, and they're assuming that everybody that is making that chant is definitely wanting the eradication of Israel. But we know a lot of times people will take up chants that are not necessarily things that they totally believe in everything. As I've said on this show, and I've said on other shows as well, one of the popular refrains I remember doing Occupy was "Whose streets, my streets," and the notion is that the streets belong to the people and everything, when we know in actuality the streets are a government entity and all along the lines, because streets that are actually maintained by government agencies, whether that's the Department of Transportation on the state or the local or the national level, if you're talking about the interstates and everything. So it is a refrain that people use, just like people used to use the refrain of defund the police. I personally think that was a bad refrain because I think people took it to mean it literally, when I think most people were just saying reform the police or
Yeah.
change the police,
Yeah.
but that didn't have the same kind of catchy rhetoric kind of phraseology that people like to have in their chants and in their philosophies and everything. And I think the same thing with the From the River to the Sea, because I don't think everybody that says that is necessarily saying it in the context of the way that it might have been meant intentional originally.
Yeah, and you gotta understand, I didn't realize. I knew it was a big Palestinian community in Detroit area, but I didn't realize there was as many Palestinians in this country as it was until they came to D.C. to protest. Okay,
Yeah.
There are a lot of Palestinians in this country.
Oh, there are a lot of Palestinians in this country. I mean, one of the things that I've not brought it up, but I'll bring it up this time and everything. But there are certain groups of people that run certain organizations, and sometimes they even get pushback because of their having a certain business knowledge and all along those lines. I can tell you that right now it's an African because I just went up to the store not that long ago and everything. But I can tell you that there are Palestinians and Arabs that run many of the grocery stores and the service stations, even here in North Carolina, and I'm sure they're in DC and a number of other places. So you can pretty much go to several gas stations and you might see either some of the managers or some of the other people that have some Arab background and in some cases a Palestinian background. And I'm not knocking people for having that hustle, just like I don't knock the Indians for coming into the country and having that hustle and that wherewithal to rise themselves up and all along those lines. So I knew that there was an active population, not saying it's a giant population, but an active population even here in Durham, North Carolina, because I could go to some of these gas stations and see who's running or managing the gas stations.
When I worked for, at one time I worked for 7-Eleven, a number, almost 6 years as a franchise consultant. And all the stores were under my belt, they were ran by foreigners. They were either Palestinian or either Indian or either Pakistan. We had very few blacks in the system. Okay, very few blacks in the system. And they gravitate towards operating hotels and service stations, and mainly through the 7-Eleven franchises and stuff. A lot of them have made a lot of money, are rich because of 7-Eleven.
Yeah, I mean, and that was one of the complaints, and I'm not saying it is a correct complaint, but I even remember a classic African-American movie, ironically, about somebody with the same last name, even though we're not related. But I remember that was part of the narrative around Spike Lee in one of his movies when he would have people that were complaining about both the Irish and some of the Arabs and other folks that were running certain parts of the business, even in Harlem and all along those lines. Because as I recall, that was part of the narrative around Do the Right Thing and all in that space. So definitely that has been a conversation when some people are seeing different parts of society come into areas that are historically African American. I know that that's been even in DC with some of the gentrification, that some of the people that are actually running the businesses, even in what used to be historical black areas, like I want to say Adams Mark is a historical black area, but it's definitely got an influx of people from other countries as well. And like I said, I'm not knocking the hustle. I'm not knocking them trying to make a name for themselves. But the thing that I hope for, and I don't always get what I want and everything, but even with Haytown, which is a place that I work at, and is part of the historical Black Wall Street, I don't knock the white individuals that move into these new houses or these new communities. I just personally wish that they would learn more about the history of the neighborhood that they are moving into. Not saying that they have to totally buy into it, but at least learn the history of where you are coming into.
And that's one thing whites don't do. A couple of years ago, because of gentrification, and you find in the area around Howard University and those row homes and stuff, a lot of whites are buying them and everything. So they had their dogs, their cats, their pets, and everything. So they walk their dogs, and they at one time, I don't know if they're still doing it, they were walking the animals in the house on the Howard University campus. Okay, and there was a big to do one day because you know how I'm in the fraternity, and along with a lot of people I know, you have your own little plots on each campus, okay? The Alphas have a plot, Kappas, the Deltas, AKs, and stuff have a plot. And one of the fraternities had a tree. And the pet owner allow the dog to, raise his leg up on a tree and use the tree as a pen pole, okay? Basically, feed on the tree. And that was a very, big uproar about it because they don't understand the significance of what that plot means to a fraternity or sorority. They didn't see, all they saw was a tree that the dog wanted to go up and use, okay? That's all they saw. So they come into the neighborhoods, and along with a lot of the other foreigners, Ethiopians, very strong in D.C., very strong population. So they don't understand when they come into our neighborhoods what we do and how we do it and what it means to us, okay? Our traditions and things of that nature. So, it does cause some friction in the community.
Yeah. I see that just down from Hayti, because like I said, there are a number of people, some that are European American, some that are Asian, and other communities that are walking through the neighborhood and walking through some of the communities, and like I said, not always learning the history of the neighborhood that they moved into, and sometimes they are, just kind of like carefree and not paying attention to what they have stepped into from a legacy standpoint. Speaking of legacy, I don't know if you had heard this, but this was something that I had not reported on any of the other shows. So I reported on your show and everything. Okay. But apparently the St. Augustine's University president, we know that's a major historical university, Christine McPhail, said that she recently learned that she is out of a job on Sunday. So she is no longer there. And she said that she was fired as that particular university is facing the loss of accreditation. So on the same day that she was let go of, according to the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission of Colleges, on colleges, let's just say, the agency voted to strip the university's accreditation. So it looks like that McPhail was told by the University Board of Trustees on Sunday that she had been fired without providing specific reasons. And she says she's trying to figure that out for myself. And apparently her attorney is saying that the firing is tied to a discrimination complaint, and she had filed the complaint alleging discrimination based on her gender against the board weeks earlier. So we even have gender conversations even in our own universities as well. So I didn't know if you had heard about this or
I hadn't heard about that. I tell you, I'm pretty between Shaw and St. All, they have had their struggles. Financially. And I think that one of the reasons they've had the struggles being private schools, their tuition rates are much higher than, of regular schools. But those schools, and growing up in the Raleigh-Durham area, those schools have provided a need for the community, okay? A lot of people have gone through those doors at St. All and at Shaw and got their degrees, okay? So they have benefited the community. The one thing that happens with us as Black alumni, we don't give back to the schools like we should.
Yeah.
Okay? If everybody who graduated gave $5 a month back to the schools, you could see the big difference. Okay? Because a lot of students have gone through those doors, but we won't even give $5 a month.
No, but we've even had some big athletes that have given money that I don't even think necessarily went to these different schools. I remember that a basketball player that I admire, Chris Paul, had definitely given support to a number of HBCUs, including some HBCUs here in this area. And while he might not have gone, I think he actually went to a PW.
Well, he finished up his degree at Winston-Salem.
Okay, he did finish up his degree there.
Yeah, he finished up his degree at Winston-Salem and stuff, But you have something to give, but, it's great that the athletes do their part, or some of them do their part, but we can't always sit and wait for the athlete to come along and drop $1 million here, okay?
Right.
We got to do a better job of giving money back to our universities, okay? We just got to do that,
We definitely got to do that. And by the way, just coming back to Christine, apparently she had succeeded her husband. Her husband had died apparently of COVID just 3 months into the job. So in early 2021, they named her president, succeeding her husband, Irvin Presley, who, like I said, unfortunately died of COVID just 3 months into the job. And she has spent much of her 10 years working on, as you said, solving the financial issues and stabilizing the enrollment at the university. Because there was even a time that because of some of the athletes pushing for their kids to go there, because of some significant athletes going and working in the different universities, that we were seeing an uptick in the enrollment in even some of our HBCUs because of big names like you mentioned, Dion, and a couple of others that went to work. But now apparently, when he went to Colorado, he took about he took about 8 people with him from Jackson State, including his own son and a number of others.
Yeah, and the thing about it, when you look at the enrollment of Shaw and the enrollment of St. All probably got what, maybe 2,000, 3,000 students. Shaw probably about the same. That's not a lot of money. When you're talking about a large percentage of them are getting financial aid, that's not a lot. You don't have a lot of money coming in, and we don't support our sports. Okay, we just don't. Okay.
No, we don't support our sports, but we also don't support some of the programs that they do, because it's my understanding that Shaw has the Cyber Bears, which is a computer program. I think St. Aug might have some stuff that's in the technology field as well, and I'm not even sure that the people in Raleigh are supporting some of those programs as much as they should be supporting. I'm not saying that the parents aren't supporting, but I'm just talking about the community as an overall whole should be supporting some of these initiatives as well and everything. Matter of fact, I think there were some people that were giving some criticism of it, even here on this network, the fact that Biden had said that he was going to give, I think, some of the Department of Energy money to HBCUs. Now, if HBCUs are doing work in energy, I think that it's perfectly fine for him to give them money, just like he would give NC State money if they're doing work in that particular field. But I think that there are some folks on the network that felt that it was being a case of reverse racism and all along those lines. And I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with that philosophy, but everybody has their right to their opinions and their philosophies and everything. But definitely, folks, I want to come back to something on sports, and I know we still got probably another 20 minutes. There are probably other things you want to talk about as well. But there is this notion of new initiatives, because you started off with sports. I'm going to come back to sports. I was just wondering your thoughts. And by the way, my fantasy football team sucks. I think I like it and all along those lines. So I'll be heading to the Sucker Bowl. That's what we call it when the losers play to see who's going to be the best loser of all and everything. So I'm heading to the Sucker Bowl again, and all in that space. But I can say that I beat my brother and the commissioner. So at least there was a silver lining of some degree in this whole chaos of a season. But one of the things that has been going on is because of the ratings and because of always trying to have efforts to raise the efforts, there are always these new initiatives. And a lot of people are familiar with TBT, which is the sports tournament that takes place with both existing professional players and college players. And actually the Golden Eagles won, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago. And now I just saw that there was one for soccer and all along those lines. I don't know how much money you got laying around and everything, but I saw that because they wanted people to enter their team. And I knew that there were teams that were created by some of these folks that wanted to be in this tournament and all along those lines. The entry fee to create a team in the new TBT, because it's TBT soccer, because I think they had already done men's sport, and the men's sport will be back in the summer, and I'm sure the women will be back, but they're doing TBT soccer. And I want to say the entry fee was like $40,000. So if you got $40,000 laying around, we could start the Urban Sentinel team. But I know I ain't got $40,000 just laying around. So I saw that entry fee, I almost choked, because that was the entry fee to create a team in this particular tournament. It was like $40,000. I'm like, well, let's just say, because I think in the basketball, there's like, because there was Carmen, there was the Golden Eagles. Let's just say that there's 20 teams, and that's just me giving a rough estimate. It might be more than that. And let's say that the fee is something similar. 20 teams, and it's probably more than 20 teams. Let's just say 30 teams. 30 teams times $40,000, and let's just say it was higher for basketball. Maybe it was 50,000. 30 times 50,000. That's a pretty good amount of money that the TBT organization is making. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but that sounds like 1.5 million or something like that. Just off the top of the head. And that's just off of the entry fee for the teams. We're not even talking about the fact that there is a smaller entry fee, I think like $15 or $20 per person that is entering the tournament itself and everything. So they're making a pretty good penny. But that was just an aside. But the question I have for you is, the NBA started this new thing called the NBA Cup, because there was this ratings thing and all of this line. So as a sports fan, what is your thoughts about this NBA Cup that's in the middle of the season?
It's good, and I'm not going to say it's added a whole lot of excitement to the season, because in a sense it hasn't. But the other night, Indiana knocked Boston out,
and Boston had knocked Philadelphia out.
So I think it's a good thing. It's going to be a badge of honor whoever wins the trophy towards the next couple of weeks. I think be over by time. I think Christmas Day is a championship
I think so.
But I mean, it's a badge of honor to wear during the year and saying I won the in-season tournament. Okay,
Yep.
then given the fact that the big tournament is still going to be the tournament that comes at the end of the season. Okay, that's still the NBA trophy. But I think what Silver was doing, he was trying to add a little more excitement to the league. But I don't see where it's added the excitement to the league. But whoever wins will be excited about winning and getting that trophy, okay?
They'll be excited about getting that trophy, and even some teams that people thought would not stand a chance to win the overall season, they may win the trophy, because it's my understanding that during this cup run, the Lakers have been playing very strong, even though people have said that the Lakers have some internal conflict and that they got all these different egos, but apparently the egos are working well enough to at least be on a championship trajectory. I'm not saying that they're going to win the championship, but at least they're on a trajectory to be contenders.
Yeah, and I don't say, Indiana could come and win the whole thing on Christmas Day, but they might not even get into the playoffs at the end of the regular season, okay? But, I've been watching the NBA this year. There's no real strong teams. Everybody's beating somebody every night except for San Antonio. I think they only like a 16-game losing skid like they usually are. But all the other teams been beating each other back and forth. So
they've been beating each other back and forth. But even on that, I sometimes wonder, and I don't know if you have any thoughts. Well, one you mentioned earlier about the playoffs, and I do think that Florida State and Georgia got robbed. But apparently, this is a moot point effective next year, because I think we're going to have an actual 14-team playoff.
12 teams next year, yeah.
So we'll have.
It'll be a moot point next year. Now, it's nothing else you can do in college football. 12 teams. That's what you can do, and it's up to them 12 teams on how they prepare to go at it and get to the top for New Year's Day. Okay. The week after New Year's,
we'll figure out who's going to be the champion. But what I was going to ask you, Reggie, is there is this notion, and I know that they talk about parity, even parity in the NFL and parity in baseball and hockey and everything, but there is the strong possibility that out of the South, where Atlanta plays and the Panthers play, and even out of the division that I like, the where the second place team is the Minnesota Vikings, that a subpar under 500 team could make the playoffs, because definitely I think that the winner of the South right now is like 5-7 or 5-6.
5-6. Did Atlanta win Sunday? If they didn't, they're 5-7. If they won, it's 6-6. This is my thing. If you have a division and they're playing subpar football, they shouldn't even be counted in the number, okay? All right, because the subpar football team could come back and win the whole thing. Now, it was just like years ago, it hadn't been that long ago, the NFC East, they included the Washington Redskins at that time. Washington Redskins won the division with, I think, it might have been 10-6, it might have been 9-7. I don't know. It was a subpar thing. It might have been 8-8, okay? That was when the NFC East was terrible. Okay, nobody was winning.
Apparently that's the case with the NFC South. And to answer your question, yes, they did win on December 3rd. So 2 days ago, they won 13-8 against the Jets. So they are 6-6. And like I said, that is literally the record of my Vikings and the record of Seattle. So there are the possibility that some even money or even record teams or teams with a slightly losing record could still make the playoffs, and that to me is a scary notion.
But that's how it's set up. It's set up whoever wins the conference, regardless of what their record is, it is the champion. It's sad. Who wants to look at a subpar team being the champion? Because what happens is there are going to be other teams. Okay, like right now, with Philadelphia playing the way they're playing, Dallas is now a wild card team. And they got they holding the spot down the wild card because they only lost 3 games. Right. The rest of the teams have lost like 5 or 6 games, so underneath them. So if Philadelphia can play out the season and stay with 3 losses or 2 losses, then hey, Dallas is a wild card team. Dallas' record is better than anybody in that division, the Southern Division. So why can't Dallas be made they can't make them a conference winner, but be given a better seed than the conference winner?
Because right now I was looking at the NFC. Right now, you are right. The NFC, the Eagles would be one of the top seeds. The Cowboys would be a wild card because, like you said, everybody gets in that is the winner of their conference. So right now, the 49ers would be winning, the Lions would be winning in the NFC North, and the Falcons with that 6-6 record would be the NFC South winner. And like I said, the Vikings, the Packers, the Seahawks, and the Rams are fighting for one of those other seats, and all of those have like a 6-6 record and everything.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, it's crazy, you know, but that's sports, man. That's sports. That's how it rolls, you know. And like I said, the 6-6 team could end up being the Super Bowl champs. Okay, they could get hot all of a sudden and run right through everything, you know. I mean, it's possible, you know. It's sad, but it's possible, man.
It is quite sad and quite possible. Yeah. Like you said, and all of it. Hey, we talked about it before, and I'll come back to the news and everything. Are we stuck with this whole notion of Trump running against Biden, or is there any possibility that Nikki or DeSantis or somebody else is going to run, or even like a third-party candidate, whether it is the No Label Party, and we do have some people associated with No Label here on the network, like David Walker and others that have affiliations in that space. But do you see any way that we're going to escape this, what seems like an inevitability, which is going to be a Trump-Biden rematch?
I honestly think that when the primaries come around, I think that's where they're gonna sink them, man. I really think they're gonna sink them there because I don't put a whole lot of value in polls, okay? And I think most of that 30% is his Looney Tune base that lives out in the woods in the shed. Okay? And I think what's gonna happen, because when you go behind, you don't have to talk. And one thing about Republicans, like I tell them, they scared. They're scared of Trump for some reason. They're scared. They don't want to lose that base, so they don't say nothing to him and everything. But when you come time to vote, when you go behind that curtain, people don't know who you vote for. And I really think that's what's going to sneak up on him and bring him to his knees. You know, I just feel that way. I think people, you know, going to use common sense and not vote for this jerk, okay? I think, too, what's happening, too, I don't know if he wants to win or what, but he's out there giving his playbook now what he's going to do. Now, if I was going to do all that stuff that he said he's going to do when he gets in office, I keep that to myself and surprise y'all, okay? I'd walk in there and say, okay, Constitution's gone today. CNN, all the liberal television stations, CNN, MSNBC, I'm shutting you down, okay?
Well, I mean, that's the joke, Reggie, is that people say that he could literally become the first monarch since we overturned the monarchy in the independence of
why do you tell?
There are folks that are speculating that he would want to institute himself as king until he is gone from this earth and everything. And I'm not saying that is the case. There are also other people that have jokingly said that they don't think that he expected to win the first time that he won, and that he was doing it almost as a joke campaign and all along those lines. But there are some serious people out there that are speculating that if he wins the second term, that he would declare him, he would kind of like change the rules of the game.
Yeah, well, he will. But why do you tell everybody your plan?
That's true.
Okay, and the boy is seen now. About a month ago, he was giving a speech in New Hampshire, and he was talking about Obama like he was still president.
Who was actually like that wasn't Biden that was in office? It was Obama that was still president.
And so the guy had some neurological issues. Okay, and I'm hoping they all come out.
People don't talk about that. Just like they don't talk about. I've heard people that have said that they talk about what Biden does in his cognitive dissonance or whatever the phrase is, but they don't talk about the fact that I've heard some things that have been said kind of insane by Mr. Trump, and I've definitely even seen some stumbling by Mr. Trump, and there's only a 3 to 4 year difference. So people are always talking about how he is much sharper than Mr. Biden, and I'm not 100% convinced of that because I've also seen him.
Here go Trump on the last test that he took. Yeah, they told me to count these cows, and I counted the cows. It was 5 cows there. They tell you I'm smarter than Biden. No, they getting him them dumb kitty tests, and he's swerving down. He's the smartest man in the world.
Yeah,
dumb as a frog. Okay, dumb as a frog, and it got him believing. He said, "Yeah, I counted." They said, "Count them cows." I counted 5 cows. Okay, that shows I'm smarter than Biden. Okay, come on now. I mean,
because he could count up to 5 cows.
Yeah. But I really think that the primary is going to do with me. I really think that it's gonna be a fight at the Republican convention, and that's how I feel about it. I just
Hey, do you think there's going to be a fight in some of the other areas? Because we got a possibility of two African Americans running against each other. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Josh Stein against the current lieutenant governor, who has said some very interesting things.
Y'all don't need to let Porky in. Porky, he's just crazy. I don't know what, man. I don't know who crazy, him or Trump.
Yeah, he said some interesting things, even about the LGBTQIA community and things around religion and a number of other things. And it's even a possibility that if the gentleman that is running against Josh Stein wins, who is Mr. Morgan, Mike Morgan is a judge who wins, that we could have two African Americans running for governor, which would be a first time in North Carolina and all along those lines. But that is a slight possibility because there are people that are not happy with Josh Stein. So we might have Mike Morgan against Mr. Robinson and along those lines. So it might be the Eminem show in that particular race, and whoever wins would be the first African American governor of the state, if that was the case.
And it could happen. It could happen. Now it's a commentary, a documentary out now. I can't think of the gentleman's name. He's a lawyer. He's out of New York, and he's doing a political documentary. It's on HBO Max. Okay, and he was talking about the way to solve the problem, and he named like 6 or 7 states that like have a large black populations. Is that we should do reverse migration back to the South. North Carolina was one of the states, because I think North Carolina has 23% African American, and how African Americans could up that number back, move back to North Carolina and vote and take over the state. And he named a number of states in the curve: North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, I think all the way down to
maybe Mississippi or Alabama.
Mississippi, Alabama. Florida wasn't included, Texas wasn't included. But that little dip right there, we could have control of all those states.
Yeah,
but the thing about it, and I've heard people talk about it before, about reverse migration. The thing is, it's hard to get people after they have lived in the area for 10, 15 years to say, I want to move back home. But a lot of people have moved back to North Carolina. I know from up here, from New York, Philadelphia, Boston, have moved back to North Carolina. But I don't think
yeah, that could be an interesting idea, because I don't know if you remember this, Reggie, but there were people even from our motherland that were trying to get us to move to different countries, whether that was Ghana or a number of other things. But I don't know that a lot of people, when they've gotten comfortable with Western ways, and particularly United States ways, if they are going to be as comfortable. Even though I've got friends that have visited places like Ghana and Kenya, and they tell me that they are treated like kings and queens all along those lines. Yeah, so they might actually want to make that move. But I've heard some people that have been, matter of fact, my barber, one of the people that used to visit that barbershop regularly, was from, I think, Ghana, and he was talking about some of the initiatives that they were trying to get people to come back to that particular African nation and all along those lines. And some people were literally taking them up on it. So
they want our expertise, and like, okay, politics drives the community, okay? A lot of people are not interested in politics. A lot of people are just interested in going to work every day, going to church on Sunday, having a good job, having a good house. I mean, my son and his family, they live in Houston, Texas. Texas is probably one of the worst states for being a conservative, other than Florida, in this country. Texas is still working on a secession plan to secede from the
union.
The union, and I hope they do, and they're gonna see how life is without the United States being a partner with them. Okay, they're gonna understand that they need to be a part of the union.
Don't they run into another problem if they secede? And I'm not saying that
they run into a lot of problems.
Because if they secede, just go through my theory. If they secede, I think that there was a famous war. I think it was the War of 1812 or something. So let's just say they seceded. What is to stop Mexico, one of them other Latin American countries, from coming in and taking them over and everything? Because that was part of the nature of the War of 1812, if I remember correctly, was that we were in battle with some of our southern neighbors. So I'm not saying that the people in Texas don't have a lot of guns, and they probably could defend themselves, but depending on how many of those Latin American countries went against them, it could be a situation similar to Israel against the Middle East, only in this case, the forces united against them might be stronger, and they
Yeah.
might not have the same results as Israel, because Israel
But
has been
they lose a
the
lot because they're gonna lose a lot of their population because people gonna get them and moved in, show up. They're gonna lose that money base is gonna stink. Okay,
Right.
They think people will just stay just because. But politics drives the community. Okay, so a lot of times people have a disconnection with what's going on around them. They're not really interested in politics. We're interested in politics because we talk about it, we read about it, and we understand it. But we're only a small percentage. I bet we're a 5% percentage. I think 95% of the Americans really don't keep up with politics until it's time to vote.
No, I would definitely agree with you. 95%,
Yeah,
even when it's time to vote, because I brought up on this show and I brought up on other shows as well, is that a number of people vote according to the way that they are told to vote, because they
yeah.
get those lovely little voting cards
Flyers in the mail and stuff.
and
Yeah.
the different organizations that are telling them who they have endorsed, and then they vote accordingly and all
Yeah.
along those lines. So a number of people are not well informed. I agree with you on that. There are a number of people that are paying attention, like we were earlier, to sports. And by the way, I just realized, because I looked it up, that the Panthers, the team down here in Carolina, is the first and only one to be effectively eliminated. So the rest of the teams still technically are in the hunt, including some 3-10 teams and the 2-10 Patriots. So the Carolina
Yeah.
Panthers, who only won one game, were the first team to be eliminated. But a lot of people are also paying attention, speaking of sports, to what Taylor Swift is wearing when she's coming to support her man, and all along those lines.
Yeah, that's what we pay attention to. So I guarantee you 80% of people don't even understand what Trump is trying to do,
No.
I mean, so we don't pay attention because even in local politics and state politics, and because I'm into politics and used
Well,
to be a politician.
the network head here, Nick Palvedo, has brought up on several of our World Edition shows, and on this I agree with him. You're in DC, so you have probably looked at the budget, but he has brought up the budget and has said that most of the people in America have not even looked at the budget, much less tried to read it and everything.
Well, yeah, we don't understand. Like I said, even on the local level and the state level, I know stuff that my next door neighbor don't know because they don't pay attention to it. They don't know the people like I do, the players and stuff. So like I said, the only time people really get interested in politics when it comes time to vote.
Yep,
and then they don't know what they're voting for because, like I said, they really haven't kept up with the candidate. Okay, they just haven't. So
they haven't kept up with the candidates, and not only that, but they don't even know the importance of the local person. Because, like I said, as we've said before, some of the decisions that are important to you and your family aren't just on the federal level, and not knocking the federal level, but there are important things that the school board does, that the county commission does, and a number of other people do. And a lot of times people just ignore that. Like here in Durham, our new mayor just got inducted, and he had his swearing-in ceremony on last night. I did not get a chance to attend it, but he's even talked about one of the things that he wants to do is talk about infrastructure, like around transportation and around the homeless issue and a number of other issues. And it'll be interesting to see, one, whether folks pay attention to what he has said he wants to do and whether he actually does it, or whether it's that lip service that some politicians give. And I actually am a friend with Leonardo Williams, the current mayor, and everything. So I'm hoping that he will actually be one of those folks that does what he says he's going to do. But we also know that people can sometimes get caught up in the politics of politicking. We saw that even with President Obama, because a lot of people, as I've said on your show before, a lot of the activists were expecting him to do more than he could actually do because he had to learn the game. Because being a game as an activist is not the same as running with these political types.
It's a whole different ballgame. I wouldn't be president of the United States. I mean, them guys, you go 4 years without getting into sleep, okay?
Yeah.
I need to get my rest some days, okay? It's just one of those it's a thankless job that you add it 24/7 and nobody, hey, you just go through it.
And that's why I think that Michelle Obama will never run, because she saw her husband go through it for 8 years. I don't think that she has any interest in doing it after she saw what he went through. And I was actually surprised that Hillary wanted to go through it after she saw what her husband went through.
Yeah. I mean, them guys lose weight. They lose, hair turns gray. It's a rough job being president of the United States. I mean, and I think that's in any country. I don't regardless of what, if you're a dictator, you got to try to make sure ain't nobody trying to kill you and everything, So it's a job, that a lot of guys, don't want, but but then you get the crazies like Trump who want that power, for some strange reason. They want to be able to, turn things around in their way. you know.
No, but isn't that one of the famous quotes that's been out there forever, which is that power corrupts? So I think a lot of people sometimes get into it because they may have idealistic goals when they first come in, but then sometimes they get caught up in the power game. Because one of my complaints, I don't know if I've ever brought it up on this show, but you mentioned churches, and I know that you are have some religious connections and everything. But one of my complaints against certain church leaders is that they get too caught up in the personality aspect of the church, and that's where I get frustrated with some of the Christianity. But it's not just Christianity. I've also seen it in Muslim religions and Jewish religions, and even in some of the Eastern religions, where people get too caught up in the personality narrative, and the prosperity narrative. And I'm going like, but I don't think that that's what the guidebooks, which is what the Bible and the Quran are supposed to be, was about and everything. I think that it wasn't necessarily about personalities. As a matter of fact, I think there's some famous quotes, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, about if you get caught up in that adoration kind of thing, that's a quick way to not get to heaven. And like I said, I don't know whether I'll make it or whether any of us will make it, but if there is a heaven, but if we're going to make that journey, I think that one of a quick way not to get there is to get caught up in some of these ego things, which a lot of them I think get caught up in.
Most definitely, you know. I mean, too many men are getting and women are getting rich off the church. Okay, you know, definitely. There's nothing in the Bible about prosperity. You know, you look at how Jesus lived his 3 years in his ministry. He didn't have a house. He didn't have nothing. He depended on other people. You know, even though he was able to create some miracles and feed some people, he still wasn't one to receive a lot. Okay, and you got these guys out here. You know, one thing they keep talking about is God wants them to be blessed, okay? Bless me. Give me a plane. God wants me to be able to go be on a plane so I can go give out my messages and stuff. I mean, them guys get on my freaking nerves, okay?
Oh, they totally get on my nerves. I told you before, one of the ones I remember wasn't it Oral Roberts that swore up and down that unless he got a certain amount of money, that God was going to take him home. And I mean, God did eventually take him home, but it wasn't at that timeline that he gave and everything. And then the ones that I find really funny, because one of the quotes that I do remember from biblical leaders and even religious leaders is that no one knows the time or the place, meaning for your own mortality, but also the mortality of Earth in general and everything. But you have these folks that every year, I haven't heard any so much this year, but I'm sure as we go into the new year, there'll be people that have swear up and down that 2024 will be the last year and all along those lines. And there's all these folks that come out every year. We saw it during the new millennium. I'm sure we'll see it in 2025, but they are always one to speculate when
they out there, man. They out there and they believe in that stuff, man. They believe it. Well, look, my brother, I got to go. Got to see the kiddies in the morning, but it's been real, been
real conversation. I'm sorry your guest wasn't able to make it. My prayers go out to him, like you said earlier and everything, but it was a fun conversation. Even though I don't have those kids, I can't relate to that aspect, but I can tell you that on Thanksgiving, which was the last weekend, I had the pleasure of hanging out with my nephew. So I got two nephews, and they are, sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm sure you can relate as we're heading out the door, but one of them, the youngest one is, I think, 6.5 or 6 feet and a half or 6'1", and the oldest one is like 5'11 and a half, maybe 6 even. And I'm sitting there going like, I remember when Malik was with his then wife, because right now he's engaged to another young lady, with his then wife, and y'all were born, and now y'all are as tall, if not taller than me. And I'm not sure I'm ready for this and everything. But like I said, but I remember when they were little short people, and now they're, like I said, up there. Because one of them, I was being slightly stereotypical, and I was saying like, because he's tall, I was like, "You gonna be playing on the basketball team?" He's like, "No, Uncle Mark, I like soccer. I'm gonna go for a soccer scholarship." I was like, "That'll work too."
Yeah. Okay, my man. Look, for the viewers, I won't be here next week, but I'll see you again week after next.
Sounds good. We'll run this one or another one the following next week, and then we'll be back on. Today is the 5th, so we'll be back with the pre-Christmas show on the 19th. The pre-Christmas show on the 19th, and hopefully your guest that was going to come on and talk about fashion, because I'm definitely looking forward to that. So next week on the 12th, we'll run a rerun, and we'll be back on the 19th, and looking forward to those conversations.
Sounds good. Hey, y'all take care, people. Enjoy yourselves. Hey, good chopping it up with you, Mark. You take care, man. Have a good rest of the week, man.
You do the same.
Take care now. Bye-bye.